Hi, I'm Lara, your connection coach. Have you ever felt lonely? In a world that feels increasingly divided, it is more important than ever to find ways to connect with others. Loneliness is a common experience, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. On the Bliss Republic podcast, we explore all the ways we connect with each other and discuss the benefit of having strong relationships. We believe that the key to overcoming loneliness is connection. My guests come from all walks of life and will hear about their unique experience with connection. Whether you're looking to deepen your existing relationships, build new ones, or simply feel more connected to the world around you, the Bliss Republic podcast is for you. All right, we are live for the first podcast. Hi, Bliss Republic podcast. I have decided to run the first episode with my very, very beautiful friend and very close to my heart friend, Maddie. And so Maddison Varley has been a very close friend of mine many, many years. Over the years, we have been on quite an interesting journey together where we explored through breakups, through highs and lows, losing our jobs, and really going on a journey of seeking the self and seeking connection with everyone around us. And it's not just been, I guess, the challenges of life, but also, I guess, thanks to having friends like you that I have found myself on this journey to find true connection. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I feel very honoured to be on the first one. Thank
you. So one of the things is, I think, what people want to know, why are you on the podcast and what makes us friends and how we got to know each other?
Well, I think, so I used to clean your room.
Yes, that's right. Explain to our listener, why did you clean my room?
So Lara used to live with my sister and brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And during that time, I was studying at university, and the only job that I could do was cleaning on an on-and-off basis. And so I would clean my sister's house, and because Lara was renting a room from my sister, I would obviously be cleaning Lara's room as well. So from time to time, I would knock on Lara's door and say, "Hello, I just need to kick you out of your room so I can clean." And there was no real relationship there at the beginning. It was just
it was just making a connection, I would say.
Yeah, just initial connection.
And then what happened?
And then life went on, and we went our separate ways. I no longer needed to clean anymore, and I got myself a normal full-time job. And a few years passed by, and I was stuck in a bit of a predicament. So I was told that my flatmate needed to leave immediately because she, out of the blue, wanted to just get out of it and move in with her boyfriend. And so she cut the lease short, and so I was desperate to find a replacement.
It was interesting. It was one of those sliding door moments.
Yeah.
Because I was about to move in with someone where my intuition kicked in and was just like, you have got to leave. The day I moved in, I was ready to move out again, because there were just some incidences where I guess you move in somewhere and people are just really intense, and you're like getting that vibe of, I'm not going to be able to sustain myself around this person and their energy. So, I was desperate as well to move somewhere and find a place. And I was in a very toxic relationship back then. In hindsight,
but you didn't know it.
I didn't know it.
And so was I at the time as well.
That's true.
We were both in very not similar situations, in that our partners were not similar in their toxic ways, but for whatever journeys we both had at the time, your version was your version of toxic, and my version was my version of toxic. So we had something in common, that we really needed each other, not just for flatmates, but for emotional support. and spiritual support.
Would you say we're soul sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Because there's just been so many times where we have really lent on each other.
Yeah.
On a much deeper level than just, is the word platonic, where it's just like...
I had a big think about that, and I would honestly say, and I picked that up on the social media recently, where they say you have to have 5 people in your life, like 5 types of friends. And those friends are like the person that's spiritual, the person that checks in on you, the person that says there's this opportunity. And one of them is the covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you have been my covenant. You have been my white horse to lean on throughout so many instances that followed, and my healing journey that got initiated with that particular breakup.
Yeah.
And I think since that day that we moved in together, and I remember us sitting on the couch watching movies together, me crying my eyes out, and just Maddie, since that day, relentlessly showing up for me. So I guess one of the big things that our friendship has that are really difficult to find nowadays is consistency in how we're showing up for each other and truly having each other's back. And like, I never had any day where I have any doubt about our friendship. Like, it was just throughout any experience, there was your presence and what comes to my mind is also the breakup you then went through. And I guess we've just always done this interweaving.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always been this sort of like being there for each other in a time of need without expectation. I think that people can fall into a trap of, I have to be there for this person, or, you know, I need to be there because that's part of my identity. Because I want to be the giver, or that sort of thing. But it hasn't been like that for us.
No.
I don't think. It's just been this really easy transition of, can I lean on you? Of course you can. I have the capacity for that.
Yes.
And then vice versa. It's not this, I don't know how else to explain it. We're not needing each other.
No.
It's more of a
attraction.
I think that's the right word.
Yeah.
So it was just very, very easy to become friends, and because we're both quite spiritual and emotional creatures, we just speak the same language.
Yeah.
So
I have a question for you that I've probably been dying to ask you for years.
Okay.
So what made you become spiritual?
My mum. Definitely my mum. And I mean, my parents, I've grown up in that sort of environment of think outside the box.
Yeah.
I went to a Christian school, so there was just a lot of talk about, you know, spirituality in the sense of how it can affect your life, your vibration, your energy, every choice that you make will affect your outcome.
Yeah.
So, and the power of intention.
Yeah.
As well. So I think growing up in a family where we would say things at the dinner table like, what was your best thing today, and what's going on for you right now, and all that, like, it was all very different to what most families do.
Yeah. So would you say it was more broadening your awareness, or it was more mindful, or because I see and knowing you that your spiritual path goes way beyond the realms of Christianity, for example.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think like my mum's always been into emotional healing. And with that comes a spiritual aspect. You go through different layers of yourself that you cannot describe in a physical sense, which is why it's a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
I learned to tap into those things from a very early age.
Was your mom like more challenging you to look at your emotions and connected with that?
Yeah,
how did she do that?
She asked a lot of questions and poked and prodded. So my mum's not the type of mum to just be like, oh, should be right.
Yeah.
She's the type of mum who will ask everything, even when you have told her not to ask anything.
Yeah.
And she'll want to prod because she has the belief, and I don't know if I also have this belief or not, but she does definitely have a belief that we're all here. She likens it to these beautiful diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
and that life throws mud at us. So we're born a diamond, perfect, pure, and life covers us with
Mud.
beliefs. It's like a metaphorical mud.
Yeah.
So it's the layer of protection that we put around ourselves. It's how we hide our true beings to survive. And Mum's definitely in the mindset of we're here to remove or learn from the mud and wash that all away so that we get back to the source, so that we get back to being that beautiful diamond that we are. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's the mentality that I grew up with as a kid, which allowed me to be spiritual. But how did you actually get into it? So I've never actually asked you how you found your spirituality.
That's a brilliant question. I actually had an awakening experience before I even had any clue what that means. I guess I went on a exploration after having moved in with my first boyfriend and then going through a separation afterwards because I moved country and developed in new and different ways, and I just didn't feel like a relationship was giving me the space to develop the way I needed it. I was wanting to break free. I was, I think, 25, 26 at the time. And I decided one of the things I've always been curious about is surfing. And so I went on a surf camp in Spain. And during that time, I actually met an Australian dude who introduced me to a couple of philosophers as Alan Watts. And it was really interesting to take on something that I never experienced before, a thought, a concept. And during that time as well, I had it was actually a spinal massage, like a shiatsu massage from one of the therapists she was from New Zealand, and she was working in that surf camp in Spain at the time. And my body was tense. I was just going through the physical experience of wearing myself out. And so after having had that massage, I walked down the beach and I had this massive download of knowing that I was God, knowing that God was all around, knowing that everyone around me was God. And it was a download that for many, many years I never told anyone about, because I mean,
you can't explain it.
When you walk around telling people you're God, they will lock you away. So it's not something that everyone has the openness to even discuss, but it has opened my thinking. It has opened my horizon to thinking outside of everything I've ever known before. And I think it was like about in 2015 when I went to Hawaii to pursue becoming a yoga teacher, that one of the scriptures and everything I learned about yoga philosophy, that it merged together. And I learned that I actually had an experience of my pineal glands opening. And what happens, it was like a biochemical response to my body that also happens, I believe, when people take a drug called DMT.
Yeah.
And it opens your pineal glands to have exactly the same experience. So as wild enough as I've never taken any drugs like that. And I had still the experience just from a physical release. It made me so curious. I was like, what else is out there? Like, what are the things that are happening with me? Like, it felt like as if I tapped into this pond of magic or this pond of intelligence that is there, but we don't ever access it. So I was curious. I was so curious to find out, what is this? What is this field, this whatever that is that's opening in front of me, that I just had like, a taste of. What is that? And I'm not the one to shortcut it and go into, well, I can take a mushroom, or I can, I think there's a lot of shortcuts out there that people currently are using, which in what ways it suits them.
Yeah.
I can't really discuss because it's not my experience.
Yeah.
But I am extremely connected to my intuition, which has grown ever since I pursued that.
You'd have to train that.
Yeah. And allow it and open up to it.
Yeah.
And I think then it's like a water stream that just flows through you.
Yeah.
And with my intuition as well, especially with all these psychedelic experiences that are currently out there, I tap into that. And one of the things that I love working when you develop your intuition is to meditate towards that thing, that journey, that experience, that anything. If you have some questions to answer or a challenge ahead of you and you need to make a decision, I love to meditate into it and say, what's the frequency I'm perceiving? What's coming towards me? And what is it that this very thing is trying to shape in my life? And I almost always get an answer back. And it might be my inner voice, or it might be a frequency outside of me that I'm receptive to. I'm just open to all possibilities, really. But I always let it guide me. Yeah. And I think the more I've healed my emotions, the stronger that feeling had grown. Yeah. And to the point where I'm so attuned to very subtle energies that I can no longer ignore them.
Which is, I find, a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
Because it can be quite exhausting opening up so much of your being to other people's and having those receptors.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when you pick up on certain parts of your intuition that you would otherwise be able to shut out, it can be quite, at least for me, like it can be quite draining.
Yeah.
Because you pick up on, oh, you have so much pain, or, oh, I'm sensing that you've had a really rough life, or I'm sensing you're having a bad day.
Around other people, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, not myself.
Yeah.
More other people, because you can really feel what's underlying.
Yeah.
And you may not even be aware of it as well. Like, I don't know if you experience this sometimes, but you can pick up on other people's, almost like their inner monologue.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's when you're truly seeing someone for the first time.
Yeah.
And you're really sensing, I see who you are.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's just how my intuition works.
What do you think that is?
I think it comes from self-awareness of your own self. The more you work on yourself and the more you understand who you are and how you work, the more you see how much the same everyone else is. And so when I see someone come in and they're a bit aggressive towards me that day, or there's just something off about them that day at work, I might go, oh, I think I'm seeing in you what I have in me.
Yeah.
It's a mirror, not really a projection.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, maybe I'm seeing it because I need to look at it myself.
But maybe that. Or isn't that the very essential essence of empathy?
Oh, yeah.
Because you understand someone's needs. And I think you are tuning to saying, I see your need. Right now, you need me to calm you down. First things first. A lot of people nowadays, especially with their nervous system not being intact, social media, distractions everywhere, and not being connected to yourself, we very often tend to be reactive.
Oh yeah.
When someone confronts us, we try to push back instead of, I think what you are really good at is to look at the big picture and be receiving of what does this person truly need.
Yeah.
And you read between the lines.
It's something I try to do. I definitely can't say that I do that all the time.
Have you always been that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I remember doing it a lot at school, but I think it came from a survival mechanism though.
What do you mean?
So when I was younger, I didn't have like a lot of friends, so I needed to figure out a way to blend in or to feel safe in groups that I didn't feel safe in.
Yeah.
So I'd have to pick up on the emotions of others and regulate how they were going so that I could feel safe.
Right.
So I'd like to say that I'm just, a wonderful person and I just, just comes naturally. But to be honest, it didn't come naturally from that reason. It just came from the fact that I needed to read people to survive. And then as I worked on myself, I now read people not to survive, but to empathize. I definitely fall back into old patterns because that's my body's way of surviving.
Yeah.
Which I think, we both have our own ways of dealing with that as well, the survival
mechanism. Yeah. Definitely. What's your default?
Depends on the situation, but I do fawn a lot.
Oh, wow. What does that look like?
So, fight, flight or fawn. So fawn is the deer in the headlights. So fawning is like something crazy is happening and I'll just be still and silent and I'll be not sure whether I want to run or not sure whether I want to fight.
So you allow yourself space?
No.
No.
This is something I'm still working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that hurt you or how does that impact you negatively?
The fawning? I don't have a voice. I don't allow myself to speak.
Yeah.
And I also don't give myself the space because if I was running, I would allow myself to remove myself from situations.
Yeah.
But I seem to always put myself in the situation and then I'm just sitting there uncomfortably stuck. So, and I'm getting better at it now, but that's my current, I want to call it a trap. And it happens in all areas of my life as well, relationships, friendships, but mostly I seem to be triggered with work environments. So if I'm working as part of a team and I don't know the people very well, even if I know the people very well, I just have this very stiff, stuck feeling, like I'm not moving. Yeah.
So you're kind of surrendering?
I wish.
So it's not a peaceful experience.
No, it's not
experience. So you really feel like you're freezing.
It's freeze, yeah.
Yeah.
It's freeze.
And how are you working on that?
That's a good question. I think, so I've been going to a therapist for about a year, just over a year, and
I love therapy.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah. Therapy has changed my life.
It really has. Same. Actually, I would say that you're like the best free therapist that I have because you're my friend and I can just call you anytime. We always have the same advice or at least really similar advice to what my therapist that I pay tells me. So I'm like, how am I bothering paying for that?
Sometimes we need to double validate.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes it seems a bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, through therapy, I've realized that it's okay to feel fawn. It's okay because I think what happens is, and I don't know about our audience, but you get to this stage where you recognize something in yourself you absolutely loathe and you want to fight it or you beat yourself up about it.
Yes.
And I was beating myself up about who I am and how I deal with things.
So you're beating yourself up for loathing when...
Yeah, I loathe the way that I fawn and freeze. And I have this I wish I didn't do this or I wish I was better or how can I improve myself?
So negative self-talk?
Oh yeah, lots. And what I'm working on and what I'm getting better at, but still have a long way to go, is just sitting with myself and being like, okay, you're in fawn at the moment.
So you're looking at it from the outside in?
Almost. And something that I can give myself some accolades, but I came up with an idea, and this is how I got out of some toxic relationships. I came up with the idea that if you spoke to yourself as though you were your 5-year-old self, so if I was the mother, and I'm looking at my 5-year-old self or 2-year-old self or 3-year-old self,
yes,
how would I talk to them when they're fawning? And most of the time I just burst into tears because I'm like, oh, of course you would just love them. And you would just be like, of course, little one. Like, you're so safe.
Yes.
I've got you. Feel fawn.
Yeah.
Be fawning. Or be running. Or, if your go-to is fight or flight and you're always running away from things, hug yourself and be like, you're doing so well trying to survive the way you thought would make you survive.
Yeah.
Now you've got to give yourself some accolades. Your body, your mind has trained itself to live. Yeah. And that's all you're doing. So if you're beating yourself up for trying to survive, it's counterintuitive because you're not, it's not like you're purposefully going out of your way to do something terrible to yourself. You're actually looking after yourself. Yes. But it's just maybe not the best way to do it. So then it's just allowing yourself to sit in the uncomfortable moments and loving yourself anyway is what I am learning to do. And it's changed my life. Yeah. It really has.
What does sitting with your emotions mean to you?
It's scary because it's confronting.
Yeah.
Feeling how you really feel is so hard.
Yeah.
Because most people want to push that aside.
It's been probably one of the biggest eye-opening experiences to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen a shift in you as well over time. The more you step into your emotions and just allowing yourself to feel, the more free you've become.
I think I've softened a lot as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is been, like, I've always been aware that I had to soften, but I never knew how to get there until there was no other way but allowing. And I believe one of the deepest emotions I didn't allow myself to feel, but then my breakthrough was through feeling that is grief.
Yeah.
True, meaningful, inner, deep grief. And I feel it was so impactful that I wasn't just grieving my here and now. That was the grief for, I don't even know, like there were things pouring out of me when I was 7 that I had no connection to, but they had to be grieved. So I grieved them. Someone has to do the work. And I think there's something to be said about taking responsibility for yourself and your inner child in doing that work.
Yes.
When you allow yourself to feel.
Yeah.
Because in our society, I think so many times we get shut down as to, even myself included. Yesterday, I had a moment where I was grieving the end of a relationship that I had recently experienced. And there was some memory that came up, and I was doing some work with a friend, and I said, well, my friend is here. I don't really want to cry right now. And so I just found a space where I could still do the work and shed a tear and just be like, that was not okay. And I'm allowing myself to mourn that moment. And sometimes it's about mourning not the loss of someone else that was meaningful in your life, but also mourning that part in you that allowed things to go in a way that you disrespected yourself and you didn't show up in a way that you are really allowing yourself to be valued as the person that you are.
Yeah.
And there's so much conditioning around not to cry. I think crying is one of the things that we misunderstand. I try to teach myself to say it's a bodily function. And if I have to sneeze, I sneeze. If I need to cry, cry. And just see it flat out as something that my body just requires me to do to stay healthy.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I've not thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And I think so many things that we do that our body naturally wants to do that we suppress.
Yeah.
All the emotions. It's one of the parts that I think are trivial to healing. And I guess one of the big 3 things that I keep telling myself and everyone who's joined Bliss Republic and seen some of my videos is you have to go through the 3 stages of healing, which is the first thing you recognize. Your head starts spinning around. Why did this go wrong? I could have done. And you evaluate. Some people, they just need to know, this didn't work. I'm the person who needs to know why it didn't work, when it didn't work, what it did. I go into every little detail.
I think that's very feminine. I think that's...
Really? Why?
Yeah. Oh, I think it's just... I don't know if there's like a scientific reason for it, but I just find with women, we need to know the answers for like everything. I've heard it before that it's like our brains work in the same way that spaghetti. It's just, there's lots of things and they all connect and all that stuff.
I think I've seen that where our synapses in the brain, they're just like a firework, like everywhere in our brain when we're problem solving.
Yes.
And I think for men, there's actually like 2 connections. It's like problem, solution.
Yeah.
For us, it's like the environmental impact on our like well-being of the family and everyone around us. Yeah. And it's just,
everything is connected, even if you don't think it's connected, like we're trying to figure out how it's connected.
Yes.
Whereas men,
that's a very good point.
They think like boxes. So
what do you mean?
So they'll have a box for their girlfriend. Yeah. And they'll have a box for their work.
So compartmentalized.
Yeah, but none of the boxes connect. There's no rope, there's no what happened at work will now connect to what happens with my girlfriend when I get home. They don't think like we do.
So what could be a benefit and what could be an issue with that?
I think the benefit is we teach each other. Men remind us. It's a very easy solution and we hate it. We hate it when they give us a solution because we kind of know that we already have a solution, but we just want to talk it out and we just want to complain and we want to whinge.
I hate when someone is just like, in fact, my mother used to. My mother wounds is that my mother is very strong in her masculine energy.
Yes.
She raised us to be super independent and never rely too much on any other person. So I had, when I softened, to break through that and say, I'm allowed to ask for help. I'm allowed to have the masculine take the lead.
Care of you, yeah.
Yeah, and care for me. And it's something that I really now enjoy and open up in my feminine when that dynamic is happening. But besides that, I also think what we forget is the embodiment and really being with your emotions and being with grief, fear, love, and naming that and connecting that. So not just being in your head about it, not just being able to process it through your thoughts. That's where most of the men, from my experience, step out, because feeling your emotions is scary, as you said. It's really scary. I've just experienced previous partners at that point always saying, I've done the work because I've understood it. I've reflected on it. But then how do you do it different? How do you program yourself to actually do things different next time?
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot about maturity and growing up in actually taking responsibility, which to me means if you remove all the words around a person, everything they say and promise, if you silence that, what language do their actions speak?
Yeah.
And I think that to me shows if you've healed or not.
Yeah.
How do you treat others?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The men, and I think the men can learn a lot from us as well in the way that our brains are so different. So we're more on the emotional side, they're more on the practical side. Yeah. And they remind us to, hey, it's great that you're emotional, but you're allowed to step out of that and you don't have to be so, reminding us that we don't have to connect the dots. And then vice versa. It's like men need to understand, men have the opportunity to learn from us that it is okay to be emotional and to try and connect dots and to have that more feminine side in themselves as well. Yeah. And I'm not saying they need to be feminine. No. But they're allowed to tap into that. And we don't have to be masculine, but we're allowed to tap into that. We're supposed to be learning from each other, otherwise we wouldn't be so different. Yeah. We have to just, I
think there's a lot in like that is helping in the concept that we all have male and female energy in us.
Yeah.
And that the polarity, if we truly step into our energy, that polarity is what attracts.
It's the yin and the yang.
It's the yin and the yang, exactly. And I think so often I've missed out on really good partners because of my mother's upbringing. I was so connected to my male energy. I was the go-getter. I was like going to this country, doing this, learning new sports. And I was literally, even physically, going into it. And if there was a week where I hadn't done any sport, I would talk down on me and I would not be good with me. Whereas now, I probably haven't worked out in a way that I used to this entire year. And I'm okay with that. And it's about that inner peace to say, I know myself. I'm still capable if I want to. Yeah. But it's not my priority right now. And there's other things I want to be working on because holistically, I want to change my life into a very different direction. And that male energy is no longer serving me. Yeah. So if I do want to connect with physical activities, how do I do that as a feminine being?
It's pretty awesome when you get it, when you realize that, I'm more in my feminine at the moment, or I'm more in my masculine at the moment.
And one of the main things that I see nowadays is males unlearn how to truly be in that masculine. Either because they didn't have a father they grew up with, or they didn't have a role model that is masculine or a mentor to really show them, besides all of that, I'm going to use this term very carefully, but also being very mindful of it. Toxic masculinity, language tone to it.
Debate around what it actually means.
Yeah, because I do think, so if a male decides to be toxic, I think first and foremost, they're not serving themselves in a healthy way. Yeah. And that impacts their environment furthermore. And not to forget, there's a lot of toxic femininity, feminism.
Definitely. It's just turned into this weird thing where we have to do everything. It's almost like the idea started out great and it was all about women having a voice and women, it was all about the vote to start off with. And then it's now snowballed into this idea that we can do everything, which means we have to do everything. And now we're in this...
Interesting.
Now we're in this paradigm that I'm recognizing where we have to step so far into our masculine because we have to be the working mother. We have to be the stay-at-home mother at the same time. Yeah. It's all on us to have a career, have a family, which is impossible. It is impossible to do all of it. You can't be a perfect mother, or at least a doting one, and be a successful career woman, and be, following your hobbies every weekend, and doing all this. It's literally impossible. You cannot be two people at once. Yeah. And yet, that's how far feminism has swayed.
I think it's also hard. It makes it harder for relationships. I'm not sure why that's contributing to not a lot of relationships lasting anymore, and certainly marriages. If you have too much masculinity, it's not going to work at all. No. If you have too much femininity, nothing will ever get done. I think the balance is important, and I think there's a good development for us females to explore our male energy and be in a business and create something. And I think creating in itself is such a feminine trait.
Very, yes.
And if we go into a business or we create a business, that can be such a beautiful synergy.
Definitely.
But if I feel like one of my previous jobs was a buyer at Woolworth and I had to be cutthroat and take on a certain hat and display a certain persona that I was not in alignment with at all. Like my soul was crying. I literally...
Like in terms of femininity and masculinity, did you feel like you were more in your masculine?
Oh, I had to be. Certainly. Certainly. I could not be the sort of caring, nurturing, mothering self. There was no room for that. And I think that was one of the reasons why after I changed out of that role, I felt incredibly sick. And my body was recalibrating. But I also thought I had caused myself some serious harm because it was so out of alignment.
Yeah.
Every cell of my body cried saying, do not drive there in the morning when I woke up. So that was a wild experience, and it took years to recover from. And I leaned into my healing, which I'm super grateful for, and feeling what I was feeling. And maybe that was part of the grief that had to come through, losing that part of my feminine side that I couldn't hold space for so long, while having to perform in that job that I couldn't let go because I had
financial issues
attached to my visa in Australia. So it's hard.
Yeah.
And would I do it again? No. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because I know the price and the sacrifice I took.
Yeah.
Therefore, also, I guess, it makes you think. It makes you think of your journey and if that masculine side, it has gotten you a visa. But at the cost of what?
Yeah.
There's always, like, as you said, the yin and the yang, a shadow side to it.
Yeah.
So I guess we females can really do some work asking ourselves, what is it costing us by 100% being connected to our male energy all the time, without being able to let ourselves fall into that support of a male, which I just crave so much.
Yeah. And it allows the men to be more masculine when you allow yourself to be feminine in their presence.
Yeah. What does that do for them?
I think it gives them a sense of power. Like, they also have a caring nature, but it just comes out in a more masculine way. So they're our protectors, they're our providers, and we are the nurturers. So if we don't allow them to protect and care for us in those masculine ways, for example, I know it sounds really silly, but my partner, Tom, he offers to carry the shopping all the time, even if it's really light.
Yeah.
And I get really funny for some reason, because I think in my mind, and growing up in this sort of generation of doing everything, you're a strong, independent woman.
Yeah.
I get funny about it. And I find it really interesting because I can't allow him to be masculine. I can't allow him to take the shopping and for me to just be like, oh, this is nice. Like, I can be in my feminine now. I have to be in my masculine because I've been taught, or it's ingrained in me, and I have this belief that I have to do it all myself. And it's not feminine. That's a masculine trait.
Yeah.
Men can do it. And women can, but they don't need to because they're being taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's been a really interesting transition of allowing Tom to take the shopping. And it sounds really trivial, but to carry the bags, it's a beautiful gift that he gives. It's such a small thing, but it shows so much that, no, he's got this.
Yeah.
He's taking care of me.
Yeah. In
even small ways.
Yeah.
And that should be allowed. That is the masculine taking care of the feminine. And the feminine is allowed to step back and soothe.
I really like that concept, and it's like coming from a German background with a strong mother. It was a hard thing to let go of. Even in Germany, if you go on a date with someone, you always pay 50-50, no questions asked.
Oh, I do have issues with that.
So tell me, why?
I feel like in this day and age, it should be 50-50. Because I don't want, like, they'll have something over me, especially with money. So if they're paying for me, I then owe them something.
Right.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
So, and it might not even just be money stuff. Like, they might ask me for something later on, or they might bring it up later on in the relationship, being like, I spent so much money on you and you won't even, help me do this, or let me go on a holiday with you, or the situation.
You don't want to give it reason to backfire.
Yeah. Because if I can pay for myself, then there's nothing's hovering over me. My sisters are both like totally fine with it.
Yeah.
They're both like, oh yeah, the man should definitely pay. And I'm like,
isn't that something interesting? Like, I think nowadays it's such a wild thing because I had this conversation with my dad, and he was like, well, when I was your age, I was able as a single person to provide for a family, to have a couple of holidays a year, to buy a house, to support the family.
Yeah.
With a single income.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's a lot that has shifted because of the feminism and emancipation and us contributing to taxation as well, which now that we've doubled that bucket, I think there will never be a way out of that. That has shifted so much to the point that we put a lot of pressure onto our men to ask them to do it all for us. And I like to discuss it in the form of being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a lot of benefits to that. Because you can hire someone to look after your kids, but then you pay them while you work for that. Like, it just doesn't seem to line up for me and my values either.
Yeah.
And I would love to spend time raising my kids properly and making sure that they get nurtured in the way that I would want to be nurtured as a child.
Yeah.
So it's important to talk about that. But I also would feel incredibly guilty of being in that joy of receiving family creation when my man has to go and work all day and not be part of that. I would feel incredibly guilty to not being able to share that for once, and also having that pressure, that financial pressure, all on him, which in our day and age, and especially where we live, this is unmanageable. It's like over the top. And so if I was at home, I would want to create other opportunities on how I can provide an income.
Okay.
Whatever works, especially with the pressure that we have nowadays on our men and in the location that we live. I think being able, with all these opportunities out there, that you can work from home and contribute in a way. And another thing that I found super interesting is the idea of splitting your income contribution between a couple percentage-wise. See, if I was to make, let's say, 50,000 a year and my husband was making 100,000 a year, my contribution would be 50% and his contribution would be 100%.
Yeah.
So I think I would have half of that as an income and half of that as a contribution. The time spent at home taking off, if your income is almost equal, then I think, why don't you go 50-50 on the time with the kids at home as well? Because they would benefit from having a father around.
I see what you're saying, and I do agree to an extent, because I think it also depends on your partner. Raising children is not an easy gig, and I have not even had children of my own, but I nannied.
Yeah.
And I was so exhausted and tired at the end of the day. I didn't want to have kids anymore. It's just how difficult it is to be present with a child. And I think that's why a lot of mothers go to work. They actually go to work for their mental health. And it's not just for the cash. It's because I actually need to feel like myself.
Do you think a lot of women are disconnected and then they have kids, like disconnected from themselves, and then the job being an escape because it's so hard to actually connect?
You cannot be fully connected to yourself once you have a child. Your body is literally their food source. Your body. So you have to disconnect from yourself at times.
Yeah.
When you have a screaming baby 24 hours of the day and you don't know how to fix it. Yes, I think what you're saying is true in that, yes, it is an escape. But I think I used to see it as that's a terrible way of parenting. I don't think I see that anymore. I think I now understand, no, that is them getting back to who they are.
Yeah.
That is them actually reconnecting with themselves by having that separation.
Yeah.
Just like in any relationship.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need time apart.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a couple of hours going for a walk on your own rather than have them come with you every single time.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I actually really just need this moment for myself to reconnect with who I am and my mind. And
it's so important.
Yeah, it is really important. And we forget because we get into a routine and I'm sure mothers may feel this as well, that, you know, they just expect, okay, I have to be the mother, I have to be with my child all the time. They need me. They don't really need you. Not 24/7. You can take that walk on your own.
Yeah.
You can do this. And it's good for the development to not hold you around 24/7.
I know.
Yeah. And I think, like, I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. She said she absolutely hates hearing when people are like, it takes a village to raise a child.
Why is that?
She hates it because it's true for way back when we had villages. And she said, there's no such thing as a village now. So stop telling me that I have to be the village.
Right. Oh.
And this is where the masculine comes in, where it's like, okay, you have to do everything to provide. And that's not how we're supposed to be as women.
Yeah.
We're meant to have our femininity and tap into the masculine at times. We can't do it 24/7.
Yeah.
It's not how we're wired.
Yeah.
And so we'll remove ourselves from ourselves every time we're in that state of masculinity of having to do everything.
Yeah. Which I think it can take over, especially when you're a young mom and you just want to do the right thing. There might be insecurity and you dive into it, and this is the first time you're having a child, and it can be extremely overwhelming.
Yeah, it must be so difficult. Like, I can't even imagine. And it's funny because I'm like, I'm scared to have kids, but I really want them.
Yeah.
So it's like this.
I see it in a following way, because many years I've been afraid of that step because of how much you give up.
Oh, yeah.
And I think one thing that has to be said about that is that I've not met a single parent who said, oh, no, it was just, walk in the park.
Yeah.
Not a single one.
Yeah.
And hands down, I have a lot of respect for that journey. And I almost see it as it's the sacrifice you have to be willing to accept for. And I'm an idealist. I think I really still am super optimistic about having a beautiful family and having that sort of family unit and connection. Because I think at the end of the day, families are very undervalued these days. They're kind of put down and not seen as what they truly are. After my healing journey, I'm now reconnecting in beautiful ways with my family. I have so much love for my parents. And it wasn't always the case. We had to develop individually and together.
Yes.
But in this family container, you can. I think there's families are incredible and absolutely they carry society. Having children is part of that. You have been someone's child. It's important to acknowledge the circle of life and acknowledge that if you don't continue, a part of your lineage dies. I've never seen myself, even if I have respect for that journey, and I'm afraid of it as well. I've not ever doubted that I couldn't figure it out. I think there's an inner strength that has grown in me even more so with the wish of almost expanding my being into another being. It's so unique and beautiful. Yeah, and not a single prize is too big. That in itself is, I think, something spiritual as an experience. Yeah. Which I think only mothers, when they talk about it as well, they share that and they say, you won't know until you feel it. Yeah. Yeah. So, Maddie, thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful first episode. It's really fun. That was really insightful. Yeah, my goodness. So one of the things that I'm going to introduce to all of my guests, which is the last question I'm going to ask everyone. What does love mean to you in your life?
There's no right or wrong answer, is there?
Very, very individual.
God, not in a Christian sense, but love is the highest power, the highest experience we could ever have. I think that's my answer today.
The love to God, like the spiritual love?
Yeah, like God is love, love is God. I think of God when I think of love because the way I understand God, whether it's a man in the sky, if that's what you believe, or an energy, or a life source, or a something, that is what it is. Even when you're in fear, love is behind it every time.
Yeah.
We're all looking for that source. We're all looking for that piece that we feel like we're missing that we already have in us, which is God.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
I love you, sister. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day, bliss and bless.